Oh my God, here we go again. Men talking about stuff that's gonna help them be free. This is an Infinium podcast, which is entitled MGTOW Freedom. What the heck is that? What is MGTOW Freedom? Oh my God, I just wish I could get these men to just shut up.
My brothers, welcome to the second edition of the Infinium podcast. But before I begin, there are some administrative items I would like to take care of. I originally intended for this edition of the Infinium podcast to deal with what is called the cracking process, but I decided to postpone that podcast in favor of this podcast, and I will address the cracking process at a later date. I decided to do this because of the critical importance of what I am about to talk about, MGTOW freedom, and as well what is being done to totally strip that freedom that the MGTOW philosophy affords we MGTOW men. Now, we MGTOW men have known for quite some time that the feminist plantation state cannot accept that we are free men. And I'm sure that every man who is a MGTOW has experienced the oppression of the feminist plantation state on both a personal as well as corporate level. So basically, again, a MGTOW man can experience oppression coming from the feminist plantation state, both on a personal level, that is relating to his family, relating to the females in his family, relating to the females at work, just going to the grocery store, and having problems with the women in the grocery store, that type of thing. And then on a corporate level, we corporately as MGTOW men suffer from the oppression of the feminist plantation state. We have our channels, if you are content creators who do either REDPILL or MGTOW content, our channels are heavily censored. They are pulled down many times. All these types of things happen to us. So we are told to, on a individual level, as well as a corporate level, to suck up and shut up, that we are to be quiet about the oppression of the feminist plantation state, that we cannot speak as free men. We cannot speak against the stuff that's going on in terms of the oppression of men. We cannot speak and we cannot say these things both on an individual as well as corporate level. Now, we MGTOW men are aware of the attempts by the feminist plantation state to do things like classify us as destructive terrorists because of our embracement of a philosophy which we know is freeing to us, which we know is a lifesaver to us. And what I am about to get into, my brothers, is the latest type of thing that the feminist plantation state is doing in terms of this oppression, in terms of what they are attempting to do in terms of silencing us. I'm going to get into the level of despicable activity of what the feminist plantation state is doing in terms of this oppression, in terms of trying to strip us of our freedom as MGTOW men. And of course, this relates to the overall freedom of men and how all men in westernized societies, which are controlled by the feminist plantation state, cannot have freedom in any regard. Now, the latest attempt by the feminist plantation state, particularly in America, is the need to classify men who REDPILL or go MGTOW as male supremacists. That is, again, any man who is REDPILLed or MGTOW in nature is, because of this classification, a male supremacist. That means that you can be associated with the vitriol that goes along with being a white supremacist. And it means that this type of designation can be used to inflame violence, anger against any man who is red pill or MGTOW because of this designation that they are male supremacists, that they are causing a problem within this society. As well, it should be noted here that the FPS in the past has tried to directly associate the MGTOW philosophy with white supremacy. These attempts failed because the genesis of the MGTOW philosophy came from men seeking their freedom from feminism and not from any effort on their part to promote white supremacy. What this means again for men who are red pill or MGTOW men, because of the classification of them being male supremacists or involved with activities which are classified as male supremacy, there is the automatic association of those men being white supremacists or being in support of white supremacist types of activities. So right there is the danger of those associations that the feminist plantation state is trying to put upon we men who are free, we men who are MGTOW and free. Now, how this came about was because of a content creator by the name of Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews. He is basically a red pill content creator, and he sometimes touches upon MGTOW related topics. He basically is a content creator who has set about doing things which are helpful to men in general. But he recently announced that he is on a report which was generated by a non-government organization which is called Diverting Hurt, and also which has funding from the Department of Homeland Security. This report basically has all types of content creators who are manosphere related. And of course, again, he is on that report. He is the second to the top of this report. And again, it is slanderous in nature because it says everything about MTR, which is unfounded and untrue. Now, what is more disconcerting is that the first person that is listed on this report is Sandman. Sandman is a content creator who is widely known for his MGTOW content. So again, my brothers, here you have two manosphere-related content creators, very large content creators, one being Sandman, the other being MTR, 1 and 2 on this list, who are cited as male supremacists, who are cited as being the ones who are spreading hate, spreading vitriol against women, which all these content creators have done is tell the truth about the problems that men are experiencing because of the feminist plantation state. Now, my brothers, what this means to we MGTOW men overall is a very dangerous condition which is developing because, again, any content creator who is red pill or MGTOW related can be put upon this list. And this list can be used as a foundation for aggressive persecution of red pill men and MGTOW men. It is the type of thing that should not be happening. First of all, the Department of Homeland Security should be doing what it needs to do in terms of protecting our borders. We have a runaway condition, particularly on the southern border of this country, which nothing at all is being done. There is a flood of immigrants coming across the border unchecked by any type of security or any type of measures to see who exactly is coming into this country. And now you have the Department of Homeland Security funding these types of reports against men who are just trying to live in freedom and trying to have peace of mind in their lives. You have these types of things going on. But my brothers, again, if you want to look at fully what MTR is saying, because he does an excellent job of breaking down exactly what was done to him, And again, it is totally despicable, and you will find it to be mind-boggling as he describes what's happening to him. If you want to check that out, my brothers, please go over to his channel and check out the piece of content he did about the feds have officially labeled him as a male supremacist. But my brothers, I want to get into what this means on a deep level. And I would like to relate to you, my brothers, what this actually means to me on a deep level. Because again, this type of thing not only conflicts with my embracement of the MGTOW philosophy, but it also conflicts with my faith in God. It conflicts with what I feel God wants me to do. Now, what I'm getting at, my brothers, is that I have a stance which is antecedent to marriage or anti-marriage. And I have basically, I feel, instruction from God to not marry. And because of these things, my brothers, because of the anti-marriage stance that we MGTOW men have in general, that in itself, from the view of the feminist plantation state, makes we men to be dangerous because it attacks the institution which we all know as MGTOW men, particularly as MGTOW men, as to be a scam, as to be a total scam which enslaves men. It does not give them what is purported to be the happy life that you would have as a man if you were married. You would not be alone. You would not be in a condition where you are tormented, where you are vexed, that type of thing. It is because of the anti-marriage stance, again, that we MGTOW men are considered to be dangerous. But my brothers, I would like to relate to you further why I am anti-marriage and why I believe that God himself instructed me to not marry. Now, to preface what I am about to talk to you about, my brothers, I would like to give you some background as to my qualifications. Now, I have 2 degrees in communications. These degrees were obtained at a time when you really had to study for these types of degrees. They are not like the types of degrees that are being given out these days. And it was at that time when I went to college and I went to grad school, it was very, very difficult to obtain these types of degrees. For instance, when I took the graduate record exam to go to grad school, that test was so difficult that I cannot remember to this day where exactly I took that test and how I got to and back to my home on the day that I took that test. That's how difficult that test was. I only remember getting off of the BX41 bus and staggering about 4 blocks to my home and sleeping about 18 hours after that. But to this day, I cannot remember where I took that test. All I know was upstate New York. I had to either take the bus or the train. I can't remember. That's how difficult that test was. And also the SATs at that time were very difficult. Also, I am a photographer. I am a trained researcher, trained in observation, all these things. And my brothers as well, I am a follower of Christ above all else. Now, what I am about to describe to you is what I consider to be a supernatural event or high strangeness event, which occurred between me and my grandmother on my father's side of my family. Now, at the time that this happened, my grandmother was 102 years old, and she had received a certificate from the President of the United States of America congratulating her on her passing 100 years old. And I don't know if they do that type of thing anymore, but in those days, they did such a thing. They found out who was over 100 years old, and they gave them a certificate from the President of the United States. And at that time, it was Ronald Reagan. So when she received this certificate, I was in a room with her and I was taking pictures of her and the certificate, that type of thing. At the time that I was recording her with this certificate, I had just come off of a traumatic event, which I have described before in previous bits of my content, but I have never talked about this particular event. I've only talked about two events which happened after the issue that I had. And the issue that I had was I was engaged to a closet single mother who was a Christian and whose family was Christian, supposedly Christian. The mother and the father of this woman were pastors in a church. But again, this woman was a closet single mother. And let's face it, because of my naivety, I almost fell for a 50 caliber to the head type of condition. And I got out of that situation, but I was devastated in the weeks after that situation. I felt ashamed. I felt condemned as a man because I had fallen into this type of condition. I had my faith shaken by this thing because, again, this was Christians that did this type of thing to me. It was the type of thing that if you encounter this situation where somebody is hoodwinking you and using your faith against you, it can fully destroy your faith. But nevertheless, I was about 3 months after what had happened to me. I had broken off the engagement, and again, I had dodged a 50 caliber bullet to the head, more than likely a cannon shell to the head, if you want to put it that way. But I was in a room alone with my grandmother, just taking pictures of her with a certificate and just taking pictures of her in general to make a record of history of what had happened to her and who she was, that type of thing. Now, to preface what I am about to describe to you and the supernatural nature of what happened to me is this. My grandmother could be considered to be an uneducated woman. She did not have any type of high school education. She just had a basic education. So she was uneducated. She was a Southern woman, Southern black woman. And I have the type of name which is very difficult to pronounce. And I typically have my name mangled if somebody is announcing my name because it is very difficult to, again, pronounce. If I'm in a situation, for instance, where I have to order something and they have to have my name, I give the order taker my last name because it is easier to handle. But again, because of the difficulty of pronouncing my name, my grandmother would typically resort to sugar, dear, honey, and she never pronounced my name. When she did try to pronounce it, she would mangle it. So again, she would just resort to dear, honey, sugar, etc. It should be noted here as well that my grandmother had no prior knowledge of me being engaged and then having broken off the engagement. So moving forward to what happened, what specifically happened was this. After I had finished my photo session with my grandmother, I was just sitting there and I was looking out of a window in her room, and she was sitting next to me, but she was sitting facing away from me. And she was just humming and singing. And it was the type of thing which a lot of old people do. They are in their own little world. And she seemed to be oblivious to me. And she was just singing and just singing about the Lord, that type of thing. And I was just sitting there looking out of the window, listening to her. She suddenly says my name perfectly, which causes me to look at her. And she turns to me and she says my name again. And she says, I would like to talk to you. And she was not talking in the normal manner that she would talk in, with a Southern drawl, with the speech of an older woman who was 102 years old. She was not talking in that manner. She was talking as if she was a educated person, a highly educated person. She says my name. I became shocked because she said my name perfectly in the proper way it should be pronounced. I turn to her, she looks me in the face, and she begins to talk to me and tell me about what women are doing to men. It was a highly detailed, almost like a college level type of classroom experience where a professor was talking to me about the things that women are doing to good men. And she described to me everything that could be done to me and why it was important to remain single because of these things, that it was too dangerous for good men to marry because of what women were doing. And now, mind you, again, this was in the 80s. This was at the time of when Ronald Reagan was president. But again, for about 30 minutes, my grandmother, who was uneducated, who had an education level which was far below mine, taught to me as if she was a professor. And it was highly detailed. It was highly informative. And my brothers, everything that she talked about came to pass. Not only in relationship to what was going on in that day, but also things would get worse, not better, as time progressed. Everything that was discussed by my grandmother came to pass in terms of what she was saying. She detailed things that would occur because of what women are doing and why, again, it was important for me to stay single and to just enjoy my life. Now, after the conversation, she said a final statement, and that was she loved me and that God wanted the best for me. And then she turned back around and went back to the state that she was prior to the lecture that she gave me. Again, let me reiterate, for a half hour, my grandmother taught to me on a level that was equal to or above my education. This is a woman that had no capability of doing so, but yet this thing happened to me. And when she finished and went back to just singing and humming and singing about the Lord, I just sat there in stunned silence for about 45 minutes until my family came and knocked on the door and told me that we had to go and go back to where we need to go. Now, my brothers, what I'm getting at is this. What these people are doing, what these pixies are doing in my situation are telling me that I am a terrorist. I am a male supremacist because I am following basically the instruction of the Lord. That's what these people are doing. They are saying to a man who is following Christ, first of all, and who is a MGTOW, because of what God has shown him to do. And again, what has happened to me, because I am a MGTOW, I have found that the MGTOW philosophy has saved my life. What these pixies are doing are saying to a man like me that I am a supremacist. I am a male supremacist. I am a dangerous person. I am one who is destructive to society. And my brothers, that alone is despicable to me. It is highly despicable to me, my brothers. Now, my brothers, I can understand if you say, Infinium, I've never had anything like that happen to me. I can understand that, my brothers. But you may be asking the question, how can I understand what the Feminist Plantation State is doing to me? How do I have the resource to do that? My brothers, that resource sits on top of your shoulders. And that resource is your ability as a MGTOW man to critically think. In the case that I had, yes, it was a matter of a supernatural event. But my brothers, let's say that that did not happen to me. Let's say that that experience didn't happen to me. Where does that leave me? It leaves me as a MGTOW man with what is sitting within my brain cavity, the power of my mind as a MGTOW man to critically think. And so therefore, because of that capability, my brothers, the MGTOW man's mind with the ability to critically think can derive wisdom which allows him to see the things that are wrong in terms of getting married, in terms of having relationships with women, all types of things that are going on within this society, within the feminist plantation state. Your mind as a MGTOW man has that powerful capability to critically think, to assess what is right and wrong, and why you should not take part in institutions like marriage or do things like date because it is so dangerous to you. It is not you that is dangerous. It is the things that are dangerous to you, which these pixies are talking about, which these pixies are saying that you, because of your non-participation in these types of things, because they have become so dangerous to you, they are saying to you that you are the problem instead of looking at where the problem is. Part of the main problem is the condition which has come about because of feminism, and that condition is women not being able to or not wanting to take accountability for their actions. And that lack of accountability being enforced by what the feminist plantation state does. So it's things like Scotland passing laws where men can be arrested for offending a woman. And in fact, because of what Scotland did in terms of passing a law which is fully discriminatory against men, which discriminates against men, they are overloaded. The police forces are overloaded with complaints from women about men offending them. And Scotland cannot, the police forces in Scotland cannot handle the true crimes. But my brothers, again, your mind, which has the capability, the powerful capability to critically think, can look at these things and say no to these things. And I will go my own way. The other aspect of what your mind does as a MGTOW man is it gives you the capability to self-govern yourself. That means that you, as a man, govern how you walk along the MGTOW path. You determine what you will and will not do. No government entity like Homeland Security can do what your mind as a free man can do. And that is you govern where you go, how you do things, how you live your life as a free man. That's what the power of your mind as a MGTOW man can do for you. And that's what these pixies are trying to take away from you. The capability to think, the capability to govern yourself, to walk in this life as a free man, in spite of what the feminist plantation state does to you, my brothers. This is what's being done. The other aspect of what happens because of your mind as a MGTOW man, it gives you the capability to speak about the things that are wrong, which are happening to you individually and to we men corporately, and to speak about these things with understanding, the understanding of the truth of what is actually happening to we men, both individually and corporately. Again, you as a MGTOW man, because of your mind, your ability to critically think, you have the capability to speak out against these things and speak out in a manner which says the truth about what is happening. Now, these pixies, these people want you to remain as weak, as impotent, as the ones that are muzzled and told to shut up and suck up. And my brothers, that is not what the MGTOW philosophy is about. It is about your capability to self-govern yourself and walk in this life in peace and in freedom. That is what it is about. And that is what they are trying to rob from you, from me, from every MGTOW man who lives in a westernized society, this is what they are trying to do. They are trying to make it out that your life as a free man is wrong, is craziness on your part, that you are the sick one, that you are the one that is a fool, that you should bow down to women no matter what they do to you. This is what they are saying, my brothers, that you should be subject to paternity fraud, that you should be subject to all types of things, like marrying a single mother and having to deal with her cray-cray, supporting all types of things like laws being made that you have to pay support of a pregnant woman, even though the child has not come out of the birth canal. You have to pay support of that child. If there is any reason or suspicion without direct substantial evidence or proof that you are the father of that child. This is what they're saying. What it is saying to you, my brothers, what it is saying to me, my brothers, is that we are to be slaves no matter what. And this is what the MGTOW philosophy speaks against in terms of its tenets, in terms of its underlying foundations. We are free men. My brothers, again, let me reiterate, we are free men. And there is no government agency, there is no feminist plantation state, there is no woman that can tell us otherwise. We are free men. We are the ones who determine where we go, what we shall do, what we shall pay for, what we shall not pay for. We are the ones, not a government agency, not someone that's saying because of some false study or false report that we are wicked, that we are evil. My brothers, again, the MGTOW philosophy is a philosophy of peace. And we as MGTOW men must not allow what is a lifesaver to us, what is a powerful lifesaver to us all, be turned into something that is evil, that is wrong, manipulated because of the feminist plantation state and its need for slaves. Again, we are not slaves, my brothers. We are free men. And it must be understood by every man who is a MGTOW man, who embraces the MGTOW philosophy, that the central core tenet of this philosophy is not slavery, it is freedom, my brothers. That's what we are dealing with. This is a war upon our freedom as men, our peace as men. And my brothers, it is totally despicable, and it should not be. Here it is again. An agency that should be looking at the borders of this country is instead trying to target and persecute men who are just seeking freedom, who are just seeking peace in their lives. They are not addressing the things that happen to men, like suicides, because men have been put into conditions where they are so victimized, where they are so persecuted that they wind up killing themselves, my brothers. They are not doing these things to help us. They are doing these things to persecute us in every possible way. And it is shameful, my brothers, that we as men who live in this society, who support this society in some regards, are told that we cannot say what is right and wrong, but rather an agency which has no business doing these types of things should be the one who says what we men should do in terms of the lives that we live as men and that we live as MGTOW men. My brothers, this is not about the feminist plantation state having your best interests in mind. It is about you being slaves. It is about you being submissive to some pixie that writes a report, that fills out a database, that makes all types of statements which are full of lies and fallacies about we men who seek to be free and who would strip us in every way possible of our freedom and our very right as men, not only as MGTOW men, but as men, to live our lives in freedom and in peace. This is what this is about. And my brothers, this is what you individually and as well corporately must be reminded of as you walk along the MGTOW path, that these people are so despicable that they would undermine your freedom and your ability to have peace along with that freedom because they want you to be slaves. I must remind you in closing again, you are not slaves. You are free men, and you have chosen to walk along a pathway which is profound in nature. And it is your duty, it is your responsibility to look at the freedom and the power of that freedom and to never let any agency, any wicked person who says you cannot be free as a free man, any woman, any simp, to let you feel that you're wrong for choosing to walk along a pathway which takes you to freedom and it saves your life in every way possible. With that, my brothers, I will end this podcast. And again, consider your freedom as a MGTOW man. Consider your peace as a MGTOW man. And consider, most of all, the value, the incomprehensible value of your freedom and your peace. Stay safe and stay strong, my brothers. This is the MGTOW Infinium, and this has been an Infinium podcast. My MGTOW brothers, always remember that you have the right to be free in every way possible because you are free men.